The August 23rd, 2023 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person and remotely. The board is following the requirements of Assembly Bill AB 2449, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. Would Board Member Alvaro like to speak at this time?
Can you hear me? I seem to be, okay, good, thank you. Yes, I'd like to participate remotely this evening. I appear to have a pinched nerve that is making walking pretty impossible, so I would like to participate remotely. And there's no one over the age of 18 in the room with me tonight.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Board Member Alvaro's remote attendance this evening?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve Board Member Alvaro's remote attendance this evening made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Torres. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Bonini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with a unanimous vote, and the board has approved Board Member Alvaro's remote attendance this evening. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreter, Teresa Mendeville, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask that all speakers be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. I ask board members to speak directly into the microphone and remind all speakers who are wearing masks to remove their masks when speaking in order to be clearly heard by all attendees. Welcome to County Attorney John Neblin, who is joining us remotely for tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move
So
approval.
moved. Second.
There is a motion to approve the agenda made by Mr. Torres and a second by Mr. Limpert. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Bonini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Item two is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the San Mateo County Office of Education website and in board docs, as well as on the table outside the boardroom in both English and Spanish. If there are speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreter, Ms. Mendeville, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the approved agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the County Board to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Superintendent McGee, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting?
We do not.
Thank you. Speakers are invited to make live comment and have 3 minutes to speak. The board's executive assistant, Jennifer Perna, will keep the time and advise when the speaker has 30 seconds left. Please keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raised hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. Once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Superintendent McGee. Superintendent McGee, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time?
We have two hands raised, and our first speaker would be Wesley Liu.
Yes, can I begin?
Yes, you may begin.
All right, well, thank you so much for taking my public comments. I just wanted to say very briefly that I'm here in my personal capacity, not representing the Juvenile Justice Commission or the Youth Commission. I think that's important to say, to be compliant with the Brown Act or something like that. But yes, I'm here as a young person, as well as a representative of the California Association of Youth Courts. And in our annual retreat, we identify chronic absenteeism and truancy as a very important issue for the state to address. I know that in my school district, San Bruno Park School District, the K-8 district in San Bruno, the chronic absenteeism rate is around a quarter. That means that in a classroom of 30 people, there's usually a solid number of students that are missing from class chronically. And I think that it's important for our schools in San Mateo County to address this issue. And I would appreciate that if the Office of Education can widely promote the superintendent in charge of chronic absenteeism. I think it's mandated by state law. Then I think that's an important first step. But also to recognize the disparities in the county right now in attendance rates and in truancy, and to also recognize that the chronic absenteeism is a critical element to the school to prison pipeline. So I'm thankful for the work that the San Mateo County Office of Ed, that Superintendent McGee, that Trustee Bonini, and all the members of the board are already doing in this aspect when it comes to community schools and when it comes to all these programs available for our vulnerable youth. And I just urge them to do more, and I'm here to support the work of the board. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. And between the Youth Commission and my personal capacity as a Juvenile Justice Commissioner, I really look forward to the school year ahead. I think that we can do a lot together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Janice Pelizzari.
Good evening, President Gerard, Board Trustee, Superintendent McGee, and distinguished guests. I'm here to report that 90% of our SMCA members felt that the start of the school year was the most positive beginning they've had in years. They felt that the interactions with coworkers during the PBS activities that were presented at each site were beneficial and in setting the stage for a more cohesive and welcoming workplace and school setting for kids. I want to give a shout out. Oh, wait a sec. I have a few shout outs to give tonight. Christian, and I am so embarrassed because I can't remember the other guy's name, and he was in with Cameron and then later was in with Christian. The work they did the first week of school to get us up running and making sure that we had everything going was really great of them, and they were always willing to help. I want to shout out Clarissa. Your patience with me around my username and passwords is amazing. And to Manette, for walking me through some of the things, the new stuff, and for listening to us about the others and checking into the situation and then making it right. I appreciate all of you guys at the county office for that. I want to give a shout out to the entire court and community staff as well. We started the school year with a couple of new administrators, which can be a little unnerving for some. And then our PD was PBIS, which I totally believe in and think about. And no, most of you guys would have rather been setting up expectations for the school year and learning about what your jobs were. However, everyone stuck it out and participated to the best of their ability. I want you to know that I appreciate it. Change isn't easy, but we always make it through it. I do believe it made an impact on the students as well the first day of school. I know some of them didn't seem like they appreciated it, but they did. Some of them aren't used to the positive attention and aren't comfortable with the spotlight being on them. I hope by the end of their stay with us, they are okay with things being said about them and feeling good about being highlighted. My last thank you will be to Miss De Leon, Miss Melissa, and a very courageous student at Gateway who gave us some insight on how the students were feeling about Gateway in real time. And with that information and the contribution of these two ladies, a student shout out board was put up in room 101 and will be flowing into the multi-purpose room soon for the students to give shout outs to each other. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you. Members of the public may also provide live in-person comments. Superintendent McGee, have there been any cards submitted this evening?
No, we have no cards.
Okay, thank you. Item 3A is, as everyone knows, my favorite part. And that is the August 2023 Employee of the Month, Stephanie Miranda, Administrative Assistant 2, Safe and Supportive Schools Educational Services Division. Stephanie, will you please join me in the middle of the room? Sorry. I'm used to being loud on my own. So anyway, here we go. Each month, the board and superintendent recognize an employee for providing outstanding service. For the month of August, we recognize Stephanie Miranda, Administrative Assistant 2 in the Educational Services Division. Stephanie joined the San Mateo County Office of Education Safe and Supportive Schools Department in December 2021 and continues to serve as an Administrative Assistant 2 for the Safe Routes to School program. Stephanie consistently demonstrates exceptional skills, hard work, and collaboration, all of which make her an invaluable asset to the Safe Routes to School team. She is dependable and completes tasks accurately and efficiently. Stephanie's attention to detail and research efforts have also been a tremendous help to her team's work. Stephanie is incredibly helpful and supportive of her colleagues and often goes above and beyond her regular duties to assist others. She is always willing to lend a hand to help a coworker with a project or take on additional responsibilities to ensure a deadline is met. When the Tobacco Use Prevention Education 2B program was without an administrative assistant for several months, Stephanie jumped in and supported that program, in addition to the Safe Routes to School program. She also volunteers to train and provide onboarding support to new staff and in a Safe Supportive Schools program. Stephanie greets everyone with a smile, and I can attest to that because she greeted me this evening with a beautiful smile. She also, given all she brings to her role, her supervisor refers to Stephanie as indispensable member of the Safe Routes to School program. We are proud of our county office staff and are pleased to recognize Stephanie Miranda for her outstanding work. Congratulations to Stephanie for being named Employee of the Month August 2023.
Thank you. I'm really nervous and I don't know what else to say, so I'm just gonna say thank you.
We made a deal beforehand that that's how we work it. So Stephanie, however, I do have a couple of gifts for you. This is a little something for you and you can do whatever you like with it. And then we have an Apple Award for you to put on your desk or take home or do whatever. So again, congratulations for all of your hard work. We're so pleased that you're with our County Office of Education. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's always such a nice part of our meeting. Item 4A, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the July 19th, 2023 regular board meeting as presented?
So moved.
Second.
There was a motion to approve the minutes of July 19th, 2023 regular board meeting made by Ms. Benini and a second by Mr. Camacho, by Mr. Camacho. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Do I have to abstain or can I vote aye?
Can vote.
I can vote aye. Yeah, aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote and the minutes of the July 19th, 2023 regular board meeting have been approved. Item 5A is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion to approve the consent agenda made by Mr. Limpert and a second by Ms. Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote and the consent agenda has been approved. Item 6A, Marco Chavez, Deputy Superintendent, Educational Services Division, and Chris Schaus, Associate Superintendent, Educational Services Division, will provide a report on the recent alignment within the Educational Services Division. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Deputy Superintendent Chavez and Associate Superintendent Schaus? It's all yours.
Good evening, Board President Gerard, board members, Superintendent McGee. Really honored to be standing next to this gentleman next to me, Mr. Marco Chavez. We've been together just a little bit over a year or so in leadership over the Educational Services Division. And in that time, we've had a lot of opportunity to be able to collaborate and look at where we talk about pipelines all the time and where things can run smoother. And some of the things that we noticed was in envisioning where we need to go in educational services based on the landscape changing and things that occurred after COVID as well, was really looking at how do we bridge these pieces to be more efficient at what we do, but also be more effective. Really important for us to be able to hit goals and hit the pieces that districts need us to hit, and also balance that with innovation in the pieces that we need to also move forward in agency as a county. So a few pieces you'll see in terms of the reasons for some of our realignments or adjustments that were made throughout. You can see up there some major pieces within EL services, which we're going to reference in the next slide or so. And community partnerships. As you know, there's planning grants as well as implementation grants out there and a lot of need with our districts across the board. A couple of highlights that you'll also see up here in this work. Our movement in differentiated assistance. So as Joy has stood before you before as the executive director, we went from 7 schools in need of district assistance to being 14 schools. So that also has weighed on the design and the realignment of the strategies that we're using to make sure that we're supporting effectively. You'll also see some pieces at the bottom, whereas we've gone through strategic planning as well as feedback from our districts between the new initiatives that are coming up, the legislative analysis pieces, which is a lot of pieces even coming through mental health aspects. How are we supporting students and the funding sources that come with those? It also comes with a strong need across the county for us to realign our services to make sure that we're where our districts need us to be as well. Another missing gap, even outside of our district improvement pieces, has really been around program evaluation. I've said it in our own room. I'll continue to say it. It's very hard for our systems across the board in education to take things off. And part of that process of knowing when to take something off is to really be looking at program evaluation to figure out is what we're doing actually matching. That same need arises within our districts. They are hit with initiatives. Their staff is working incredibly hard. Their management staff is also working incredibly hard. And it seems to be that piece that is still a missing gap of what is the best metric to use? What is the best measurement to use? So this is also a piece that you'll see as Deputy Chavez supports this piece in a future slide here. And also the ability for grant writers. We know that our small school districts and some do not have this ability. In the past, we've been able to do a lot of consortium grants, but there are also the pieces attached to this that who searches for those things? What does that look like? How do they know they should be applying? So there's a deep need for us to be able to solicit those funding sources and be able to provide those to districts, but also be able to help them actually manage those grants to be able to put them in writing that they are competitive so that they're securing money for their needs as well. Few of the major pieces in adjustment and realignment, which it kind of clearing up those pipeline pieces. So our coordinator of expanded learning moved in with our safe and supportive schools. So that is unique. It previously was not sitting underneath safe and supportive schools. And our new position, which is the director of school partnerships, is really working on the implementation grants and the planning grants for those community partnerships. So those two alignment pieces really sit within our safe and supportive schools. A lot of the work that is done within those areas is also before school, after school, during school with those extensions. So the right home really was for them to have access to folks that are working in that same space. You'll also see up here within our court and community, the one school program, court and community, that was not sitting underneath the same director. So we've actually moved that underneath Executive Director Sarah Notch. She spent time with many of you guys out on our visits as well to court and community as she learned kind of the programming behind it. But we have made the official move. Sarah Notch's team still sits underneath me. You'll see that in the organizational chart. But in terms of really the oversight and consensus to be able to support teachers in the trainings, it does make more sense for the same person to be able to house all of our school programs and to be able to offer those opportunities to all of our teachers. Next couple of pieces that you'll see on there, our English language support was in general moved to our district support systems, our DA assistants. What we found in conversations with our executive directors and others was that this actually can sometimes silo the work. So when you're doing English learner work, you do want it to be embedded in your subject areas. You do want them to have fluent conversations with other coordinators that are in math, science, VAPA. Those integrated services are incredibly important. So having them a part of that team made sense in the realignment of making sure that it was embedded support and those conversations happen more fluently as we're moving forward with supporting our school districts. And then you'll also see the vertical alignment within early learning in terms of pre-K through third and the big left. That new position actually helps us align the ability for us to move forward the initiative by also focusing on that K3 span. which is starting to get obviously into the elementary school span of being able to support that work. I'm going to pass it off to Marco to go a little deeper dive on the measurement piece that we spoke about and program evaluation pieces.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Schaus, and good evening, President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. So as Associate Superintendent Schaus shared, a lot of these adjustments were in response to feedback that we received through our strategic planning process, as well as the need for the needs that surface for our organization and also for our districts. So it made sense for us to bring all of our experts in the areas of legislation, policy, data, and research under one department that we're calling Research and Systems Planning. This is in response. There was a lot of new legislation that's coming from CDE. There's a lot of new initiatives that are coming from CDE, and it made sense to, and also a lot of accountability and evaluation of our programs that we need to do. So it made sense to have it all under one department. And so the goal of this team is to address the need to strengthen educational systems planning, as well as coordination and evaluation in partnership with our districts in San Mateo County. To give you an example, often our team that works with our districts on continuous improvement and the processes that go along with that through our LCAP development, through that process, our districts express interest in having our support in diving deeper in their initiatives or their areas of need that they've surfaced through this process. And so now we have a team that could partner with our school districts and engage in that work, not as a one-time service, but rather ongoing. To give you an example of what we're currently doing in that department or with that team is recently they partnered with one of our smaller school districts as Associate Superintendent Schaus shared. Some of our smaller school districts don't always have the bandwidth to really dive deep into certain areas of work. So in this case, our team partnered with this small school district to really look at their data systems and help them organize their data. Often some of our districts have important information, student information in different areas. So our team came in, helped them organize it, help them, and then facilitated conversations with school leadership teams as well as teachers to really dive deep and focus their resources, again, with the intent of supporting students and families. Again, this is not a one-time thing, but rather it's going to be ongoing support with our school districts. I'm going to provide a little bit of a spoiler alert here. Later in the agenda, Executive Director Jared Prolo is going to share another example of a tool that was developed by his team, again, in response to strengthening our supports in an equitable way with our schools and districts. It's also important to mention that this new department mirrors institutional research and planning programs that are often found in educational higher ed institutions. One area that we've been talking about that we really want to dive deep in and evaluate is our teacher and administrative development program. We know that they've been doing great work through their teacher residency program, but we want to and we've committed a lot of resources, and we've received some grants to expand the different credentials that we offer. But we want to make sure that we are that we are having the impact that we want to have. We want to know if it's having an impact in schools, it's having an impact with students, and is it are we actually meeting the need of the teacher shortage problem that we have. So we will engage in that work with our TAD team as well as with our new department. So in summary, they will engage in cost-effective evaluation and research for our districts. They will create grant management processes for our county programs, and they will help us develop a method for reporting our progress on our own strategic plan. And finally, they will inform districts on state and accountability requirements. And I'd like to share that this slide highlights or outlines the members of this team. As I mentioned, Jared Prolo, he will lead the work as our executive director. And then in our team, we have our coordinator of library media and research. We have our new director of grants and operations. And the Center for Learning and Analytics was housed in our curriculum and instruction department, but now it makes sense to be for this team, for them to support the work of this department and this team. So there's a lot of opportunities that will surface through our strategic plan for this team, as well as our entire division. So we're very excited about that. And then this slide is a visual of our organization chart that will, it's a live link that you can click on. It's housed in our website. And so you can see the different divisions and which departments are under each division. And right after this presentation, you will hear some of our team members that will be introducing themselves. And we're very excited about this year and the team that we have to support this work. So with that, we want to provide you this information on the adjustments that we've done to our division. And we want to thank you for your time, and we'll entertain any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Ms. Bonini?
I just had one question, actually, for you, Marco, on slide 5. When you note the provide cost-effective evaluation and research services, can you give some more detail around that, or some examples of what that might be?
Yes, and I think when another spoiler alert, when you hear the equity index tool that we use, we really want to approach the work with an equity lens. So if there's a small school district that has limited resources, we don't, while there may be some costs associated with the work that we provide, we may want to do some adjustments to that so that we're able to meet their needs. And there might be districts that we may do it at no cost. So we want to approach that as the work in supporting their initiatives in a cost-effective way for them.
Okay, I guess I was curious, like when you say research and evaluation services, is it just based on their data? You're just looking at their data, or are you helping them with something else that has to do with evaluation or outcomes for their students? Or
typically it would be with their data, but if there are missing elements or missing information, this is where the expertise from our team could provide that guidance and provide resources to collect additional information as needed.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Ms. Alvaro?
Thank you. I had a question. Thank you for this presentation, both of you. I had just a question. I was looking at the org chart the other day, and I noticed that the foster youth services is under safe and supportive schools. It's not in the same category as the special ed and instruction where the court and community schools are. And that puzzled me a bit. Can you help me understand that?
Sure, that actually has historically lived within student services, so that was not a realignment that we did. In terms of the carriers of that work, you're really actually familiar with them. So when I start kind of giving you some of those pieces, but Mary McGrath's team is actually the one that is the homeless liaison folks for our school programs, in addition to the rest of the county. And our foster youth services, though we have some of the providers that live out in some of our programs, they also report directly to the same House of Safe and Supportive Schools. So one of the realignments inside the House has also been to bring our foster youth folks in proximity of safe and supportive as well. So if you're in the building, the next time that you're around, we actually moved them closer to proximity of their direct supervisor as well. So that wasn't a realignment shift that we had in terms of moving it. It's lived there. And there's a lot of good cause in terms of the at-risk piece of why they would stay in that position at this point. Not to say that we're not cross-collaborating with the academic needs and those pieces of individual learning plans and those other pieces that need to happen across the board, whether it's SELPA, CNI, or any of our other departments that we need to pull in for those needs.
Okay, so yeah, I understand that's kind of the way it was before, but you made the choice to keep it there for, sounds like some very good reasons. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. Six B is the introduction of Dr. Gwen Lay, Executive Director, Curriculum and Instructional Services. Good evening.
Good evening, President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I'm excited to be here this evening in the new role of Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction Services. My journey into this role began as a student of San Mateo County Schools. I attended elementary school and middle school in the Millbrae School District, graduated from Mills High School, returned as a teacher to my middle school, and spent 23 years in the district before joining the San Mateo County Office of Ed. I've taught English language arts, history, social science, English learner development, ethnic studies, and during my tenure in Millbrae, I won 2 Kent Awards for school-wide equity programs. Eventually, I found myself at the district office in Ed Services supporting the English learner program and curriculum and instruction. Concurrently, during that time as a district leader, I was the regional director of the California Reading and Lit Project at UC Berkeley. I worked closely with many of the leading researchers in literacy while developing professional learning programs focused on students in the margins. Who I am as a leader comes from the experience of being a child of immigrants and being an Asian American. As a student, I often experienced racism, enough so that I wanted to prevent that for my own students. I'm a local Bay Area girl and received degrees from UC Berkeley, San Francisco State, and the University of San Francisco. And since earning a doctorate in international and multicultural education in the year 2000, I have developed and supported equity work at every level of the education system. This is the lens that I've brought to the work and will continue to be my lens in the work ahead. I am honored and humbled to be engaged in the work that I love with a team that I admire, under leadership that provides the support to develop ourselves as conscientious and thoughtful administrators. Every student brings with them a unique set of experiences, backgrounds, and perspectives. And as stewards of their education, we bear the responsibility to ensure that every student's journey is one marked by fairness, equity, and access. And more importantly, the absence of racialized outcomes. I'm excited about the potential for collaboration and innovation. And I'm excited to strengthen existing partnerships and develop new ones. I look forward to contributing to SMCOE's collective work in supporting educational systems that uplifts every student and prepares them to become informed, empathetic, and empowered citizens of the world. Thank you to Deputy Superintendent Marco Chavez, Associate Superintendent Chris Schaus, and Superintendent McGee for the honor and opportunity to write a new chapter for Curriculum and Instruction Services. Thank you.
Thank you very much and welcome. Item 6C is the introduction of Sharon Brown, Executive Director, College and Career Technical Education. Executive Director Brown.
Good evening, President Board Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I am thrilled to be here tonight in my new role as an Executive Director of College and Career Technical Education. You may know me from my work with the District Improvement Team alongside Executive Director Joy Darnell as I presented IAAs over the last 2 years. During my time with the SDI team, my core values were reinforced as we collaborated and walked alongside districts to develop their LCAPs and DA plans with a focus on equity. We prioritize putting students first, maintaining integrity, and guiding districts in supporting their most vulnerable students. As a student who faced academic challenges but thrived when I took an ROP floriculture course to become an agricultural teacher and eventually running the second largest CTE center in California, and advocating for CTE has always been my passion. While working in CTE, I champion for all students to have access for CTE pathways by increasing UC A to G courses and creating flexible master schedules for our multilanguage learners and our special ed students, while pursuing avenues for teachers to get their CTE credentialing. I have now returned to an area of passion and expertise with CTE, and I am excited to collaborate with districts and in supporting them to enhance and develop their CTE programs, along with developing CTE for SMCOE schools. I thank Assistant Superintendent Chris Schaus, Superintendent McGee, for the privilege and chance to work with our districts in developing and strengthening our career technical education for San Mateo County. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6D is the introduction of Sarah Ansari, Coordinator, English Learner Support Services. Coordinator Ansari.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I'm honored to be here this evening as a new member of the San Mateo County Office of Education. I joined the Curriculum and Instruction Services Department on August 1st as the coordinator for multilingual and English learner support services. And these first 3 weeks, I've been warmly welcomed by all and have hit the ground running, attending state and regional meetings, supporting professional development and curriculum pilots. And next week, we'll be launching a year-long partnership with the San Mateo Foster City School District Task Force to develop their first English Learner Master Plan. I started my career in education in 2001 as a bilingual teacher in Watsonville, fresh out of college on an emergency credential. I went on to earn my master's in bilingual credential from UC Santa Cruz and have worked in districts throughout the Bay Area, South Bay, East Bay, and here as a kindergarten teacher in Pescadero Elementary. I've also taught ESL at the community college level in Colorado and served as a youth development Peace Corps volunteer in Honduras. For the past 9 years, I worked as a district English learner specialist, supporting pre-K through 12th grade programming, most recently in the San Leandro Unified School District. In 2021, I earned my doctorate degree in educational leadership for social justice and equity from Cal State East Bay, where I studied the ways teachers interpreted and acted their professional learning from professional development and the way multilingual students responded in the classrooms to the shifts in practices that they were making. I seek to understand how we can improve support for teachers to decrease the opportunity gaps of our multilingual students. I'm a strong advocate for multilingual students and families, passionate about providing opportunities for multilingual students to build their content area knowledge and language repertoires in all educational settings and experience a personal and academic success. I strive to be a co-conspirator to disrupt the monolingual and monoglossic norms in our school systems and create environments where the languages and cultures of our students, families, staff, educators, and leaders are uplifted and embraced. I believe I've joined the right team to do this work, and at a very exciting time with the launch of the 2023-28 strategic plan. I look forward to building and strengthening partnerships with districts throughout the county and COE partners across the region to improve the outcomes for our multilingual students. Thank you for your time this evening and for inviting me to be a member of the San Mateo County Office of Education team.
Thank you. Congratulations. Item 6E is the introduction of Vivian Matsumara, Coordinator, Induction and Leadership Educational Services Division.
Good evening, Board President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. My name is Vivian Matsuyama. It is a very hard name to pronounce, so I will
Sorry.
model it for you, and that's
I
okay.
apologize.
No, that's okay. And that's a part of my introduction to you today, a little bit of the professional me from education and a little bit about the personal me. I'll start with the professional me because that might be a little more boring than the the personal. Okay. I have been in education for 21 years, started as an elementary school teacher in the Santa Clara County. I've been there my entire 21 years until this year. And I'm extremely excited to be here because I'm a product of San Mateo County Office of Education, or San Mateo County Office. As an elementary school teacher, I supported mostly Title I schools in the South Bay. And that role morphed out of the classroom into many roles supporting English learners. That is really where my passion is and part of my personal identity as well, which I will share in a little bit. Following that, I morphed into another role. Bulk of my career has been in instructional coaching and mentoring, which is what led me here this year. Most recently, prior to this, I was an assistant principal at a school that is near and dear to my heart in the South Bay. Still keep in touch with them regularly because it's hard to disconnect from 500 students. A little bit about me. I'm an English learner at heart. I was born and raised here in the Bay Area, but didn't speak a lick of English until I was 6 years old. Those of you that speak a different language know how impossible that is as a student who is learning primarily English and whose parents want you to assimilate and learn English as quick as you can. Thankfully, my family honors our primary language, and I'm still fluent in Mandarin today. My husband is Japanese, hence Matsuyama. My maiden name is Ye. It was really hard for my students to go from Ye to Matsuyama. I was Matsumama, Matsuyaya, and everything in between. But I answered to all of it. I'm a child of immigrants from Taiwan, and they came here in search of a better life, right? But they were able to balance that. I hold all of these things very closely to me as a person because it drives who I am as an educator. My lived experience as an English learner and as a person of color helps me to refine my North Star each year. So I reinvent myself and re-envision what my purpose in education is. And I've realized the constant thread in that is students and families. So I know we always focus on students, that's our job, but families are so important and oftentimes forgotten as the experts of students. That is a big part of who I am as a person and also as an educator and leader. So what brought me to this county, besides North Star, I'm extremely passionate about helping educators grow and develop to their potential, both personally and professionally. The reason I've shared so much about my personal identity today is because that is a huge part of who we are. And we bring that to every conversation we have with teachers, with administrators, board members, with students. And it's important to model that for staff and for students. So it's a great privilege to be able to be entrusted with ensuring highly qualified teacher leaders and administrators. I don't know if you know quite what my role is, so I'll kind of give you the Chandler from Friends version, like nobody really knows what he does. Coordinator of, it's a mouthful, induction and leadership services. So I basically get to work with the amazing mentors for administrators and mentors for teachers and help ensure that they're building resilient new educators out in the world. So I thank you. I don't take this opportunity lightly and so grateful to be entrusted with this task. Thank you to the teacher administrator development team and everybody that's a manager here, because I know that you're all doing your best to support our work. Thank you.
Item 6F is the introduction of Kristen Stout, Coordinator, Professional Development and Employee Experience.
Good evening, President Gerard, members of the board, and Superintendent McGee. I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve at the county office and to serve county office employees specifically in this new role. I think it says a great deal about this organization that as part of the strategic plan, this role was created, and I think shows the priorities of the organization and really pouring into investing in the staff who are here. I am coming to you from Sequoia Union High School District, where I spent 26 of my 27 years in education. I spent a hot second in LA Unified, but just 1 year before coming up here. I'm also a local. I grew up in the Bay Area in Palo Alto, not very far away. And so spent most of my life in Northern and some in Southern California. I was a teacher, taught history, and created a gender studies course at the high school I worked at. And then I had the opportunity to coach teachers in various roles, worked at the district office for 13 years, not exactly in a row, went back to the classroom a little bit in there, but worked in human resources and educational services, coordinating new teacher support and certification, as well as serving as the director of professional development, curriculum, and instruction. My most recent role, I spent the last 6 years as the instructional vice principal at Sequoia High School, not very far away. So just came across the freeway to be here. And as I look back on my roles, I see many connections to this particular position, and that's really exciting to me. Some of the favorite parts of my jobs have been welcoming people into positions, helping people to feel capable, competent, included, among other things, and to be able to grow. And I see the opportunity to do all of these things in this role. So I thank you for entrusting me with this new position. I love teaching kids, I love teaching adults, and I love helping people in general to grow and to learn in different ways, and love continuing to grow myself. I do appreciate that professional development is in my title, so that makes me happy. I think that when employees can thrive in this environment, that it benefits our districts, schools, staff, and eventually students. And students are still at the heart of any of the work in education that I'm doing. So I look forward to partnering and collaborating with many people at the county office. I am onboarding myself a little bit, and then going to turn around and help everyone else to do the same. So give me a couple weeks to learn my own areas, and then already connecting with new employees here, which has been wonderful. So I want to thank Associate Superintendent Moore and Superintendent McGee for this opportunity. And thank you so much.
Well, on behalf of myself and the board, we want to welcome you all to the San Mateo County Office of Education. Sounds like we really have some amazing new team members. So thank you all for joining Superintendent McGee, and we look forward to working with all of you as well. So thank you so much. Item 6G, Jared Prolo, Executive Director, Research and Systems Planning, will provide a report on the San Mateo County Office of Education Equity Index tool. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Executive Director Prolo? Thank you.
Thank you, Board President Gerard, members of the board, Superintendent McGee. It is my pleasure to come to you for the first time as the Executive Director of Research and Systems Planning. And we're going to talk a little bit about this Equity Index tool, which is kind of getting its soft rollout in a little bit more public way. I did want to start with the history. When I got here in September of 2019, then Assistant Superintendent Frentress handed me this chart paper with a bunch of sticky notes on it with district names and says, we had this meeting, we placed these districts, based on district need and student need. Do something with this so that we can use it. And I really wish that I had taken a picture of that chart paper, but unfortunately I'm stuck with like this sort of recreation of sticky notes on a poster paper, but I'll let your imagination fill in the gaps. The key to it though was coming to this idea of there's these two parameters that we were really interested in. One of which was the district need, that this is, funding, this is structural issues, this is administrative turnover, all of those things that feed into a district's ability to execute and serve its students from a real structural institutional standpoint. The other parameter would be that student need and thinking about the fact that not every school district serves the same students and not every student needs the same resources to succeed. And so if we think about those differences, there is a variety of sort of general overall student needs between different districts in our county. I didn't want to necessarily, like the first thing I thought about is like, okay, this is great. You had a meeting and there's like, this is the opinion of 6 people in a room. And while they do have a lot of expertise, I was like, I really need to expand this. I need to bring some more data sources in. And very fortunately in November, I was attending the California Educational Research Association conference and was able to listen to their talk from Dr. Jesse Levin, who is a PhD economist. He works for American Institutes of Research. And interestingly, is a San Mateo County parent and a former trustee in Pacifica. But he was the lead author on a paper that was part of this huge set of PACE studies, the Getting Down to Facts 2 publication. And his paper was, what does it cost to adequately educate every student in California? And it was a big study, brought a huge number of expert panels, and they were looking at things like, well, it costs more to educate students in a rural setting than it does in a suburban setting. It costs more to educate English learners to proficiency than it does students who are English only. And they set up this big matrix and tried to figure out, based on dashboard performance, what would it cost to adequately educate students? And so they came up with this number, and these numbers are actually 2016, which was the data set that they were working from. And these are just 2 examples of districts in our county. Most of the districts in California did have this gap that the actual spending per student was lower than what the predicted adequate spending should be. But interestingly, that wasn't always the case. And there are some districts that were currently funded above what sort of this adequate target is. So it's not just this plea for like, oh, we need more money. It's really trying to say like, what would the target be if this was really our goal? And I do want to sort of remind that the committee was charged with finding adequate education. This isn't equity and excellence in education. This is adequate education, right? So this is really just sort of what would be the minimum to reach that sort of minimum threshold from just a pure funding standpoint. On the other side of things, sort of that student need, I drew inspiration from the dashboard, which had this sort of equity report at the bottom. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. There's this equity report. Maybe I can gain some access here, where and I think it's a little bit too bad that the dashboard kind of buries this, because really that's kind of the critical information, right? It's how is each student group performing in a district in each level. And as many of you know from my presentations, when the dashboard and CASP results are released, we do see this sort of bifurcation, like overall a district may be green, but with 6 student groups in red and orange and 4 student groups in green and blue, some of these students are well served and some of the student groups are not. And so we really want to take into account the full extent of how every student group is being served in a district. And so I really leaned on this for that student need aspect, and not just in the academic areas, but in all the dashboard areas. So now that I had some measures and I had some sticky notes, it's like, okay, it's time to plot some points. And you can't see any of the district names here, but each blue point is a district. We're plotting them on the axis of district need versus student need. Higher numbers is greater need, more negative numbers are lesser need based on the parameters. The district need is that decile score. So we took the sort of target funding from the Dr. Levin's report and then sort of scaled it to like that -10 to 10 decile sort of situation, and then averaged that with that expert panel, recognizing that school funding is not the only parameter of district need. and that our experts really did give us a lot of interesting information to work with. So we just did a simple mean of those two scores. For student need, I combined all of the levels of all of the student groups on all of the indicators of the dashboard, and then sort of set that to a decile score, and then average that with the expert panel score. So it's a 50-50 blend of the sort of objective measures from funding and dashboard with the sort of panel need that was, panel adjudication that was given to me. So a couple of examples. This is a screenshot from the Equity Index. Each of those school districts is clickable, and we're going to pick out Bayshore first because there are some interesting things here. They have one of the highest district needs in the county, both based on panel recommendation and based on this sort of gaps in funding. We have then a sort of funding square that we talk about the different funding sources. And Bayshore is interesting from the standpoint, they're one of our few districts in our county that receive concentration funding for their students. We have their funding per student, and then that's set up on a bullet graph that it has the county average set in the middle, and that sort of quartiles of 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th, and then 100th percentile. And then in the bottom right, we have a sort of an at a glance enrollment information. How many students do they have? How many unduplicated count students do they have? Free and reduced price meal program, and English learners. Students experiencing homelessness and foster youth. So trying to get like a lot of information about sort of the district conditions into one spot. Contrast this with, say, San Mateo Union High School District that has quite a bit more funding at their disposal than a district like Bayshore. A lot of that having to do with that big section of that orange graph, which is that basic aid difference. So since they are a community funded district, they do get funding in excess of what the LCFF calculator or LCFF level would be. And so we kind of recognize that by this is the additional funding that they get because they are community funded compared to if they happen to have received the LCFF apportionment. And just I want to like put this out, and one of the reasons why I kind of want to present this before I just have the link floating around. None of this is necessarily private information, but the way that we displayed it is a little bit tricky because funding, we don't get all the funding information all at the same time. Like I mentioned, like Dr. Levin's report used 2016 numbers in a report that was published in 2018 and we were talking about in 2019, because a lot of the funding data actually really lags as far as when it becomes public. So to try and get the closest approximation, we used the current year LCFF or community funding levels with the expected current year of state and federal, because we don't actually get confirmation of those until halfway through the year. And then we use past year local revenue because we don't get that information until the unaudited actuals are actually published in the SACS file each spring. So it's not, if somebody were to look at this and say like, well, that's not true, like the numbers aren't exactly that. Well, they're exactly right, because I'm combining a few different years to try and get to as close of a real-time approximation as I can with the publicly available data. On the third page of it, we do have all of sort of the student need things. And I grabbed South San Francisco here, especially because I wanted a unified district that had most of the indicators. We have every student group and their performance level on the dashboard all in one spot, which is something that I actually kind of wish the dashboard gave to us because it's handy to have all of that information in one place. We have their differentiated assistance status, if they do qualify for differentiated assistance, and for which student groups and which areas. And then if there's any federal identifications like CSI for grad rate or ATSI, the technical assistance for schools based on those federal accountability things. So all of sort of the student identifications all in one spot for the districts as well. So we're currently using this as a more complete and holistic view of what district and student needs are to understand our districts and our schools in a deeper way, and not just sort of like what are our impressions, but bringing in some really concrete objective data. We're also using it to really direct resources that if we have the opportunity to work with some districts, and kind of like Superintendent Chavez shared, Bay Shore is a great example of a district that has pretty profound needs on a lot of aspects, and we should be prioritizing our resources to support that district. Possible future use. We're going to try and integrate this into a pricing discount structure for some of our fee-based services. So if we do go out and provide fee-based services on contract to districts, looking at a discount mechanism for districts that have defined student and district needs that are greater. That's still in the works to figure out exactly how that will work. It can be used for the prioritization of limited resource opportunities. And a few things have come across my table that it seems like we may have opportunities in the future to have the limited resource sort of opportunity that we want to assign priority to say like, okay, districts that have greater need, we're going to prioritize teachers or staff from your district to participate as opposed to maybe others. And then we have presented this at our community partners meeting to help our community partners think about other ways to prioritize their efforts. Frequently, they just use FPRM, the free and reduced price percentage. And I think there can be a little bit more sophistication to how they prioritize their resources. So we've begun that conversation with them. So thank you. Questions?
Are there any questions? Mr. Camacho.
Don't have any questions. I think I just thank you for the data. I think it's you all know I love to look at the data, and I'm excited to see how tools like this are expanded and used even outside of what the office is doing. So I'm glad that you're sharing that information. This is it's hard to contain my excitement if you can't tell, because these are the kinds of dashboards that we've been talking about for years now of how do we use data to direct really how we're allocating resources and supporting districts in terms of real need, everyone has need, in terms of database need. So I just appreciate all the work. I remember seeing this, I think we saw the first iteration when we were doing the community funded thing, right? And so to see how it's evolved is just so amazing. So thank you, Director Prolo, for it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a lot of excellent information. We appreciate it. Thank you. The Office of the Superintendent, item 7A. Superintendent McGee will report on San Mateo County Office of Education's response to the 2023 Grand Jury Report. Education is everyone's business school. Business partnerships make an impact in counties' high schools. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Thank you, Board President Gerard. I'm not making a formal presentation. I'm just going to cover a few points that are worthy of note, I think, in the response. The grand jury report is actually well timed for the work that we've been doing. We actually, as you remember, brought forward an approval of the countywide advisory committee for CTE last spring. And that's our first standing up of a countywide advisory committee, which is really part of the recommendations in the grand jury report. So while we've already taken some steps, our work is really to further define and clarify and bring our district partners along with us on those plans and strategies and goals. As you can hear, you heard Executive Director Sharon Brown introduce herself with all her deep level of career and technical education experience. So she really brings a really wonderful lens to the work. And so we have we are instructed to respond to the various findings that relate to the County Office of Ed with 4 different choices. One would be this recommendations already implemented or in process of being implemented. One is not yet implemented, but we have a timeline to accomplish that. Another one is we won't be implementing something because in our judgment or assessment, it's not warranted or appropriate at this time. So you might notice that recommendation number 5, I believe, was that by March of 2024, SMCOE and school districts should investigate the feasibility and appropriateness of reestablishing at least one regional occupation center. And I think you may well remember that we ran a regional occupation center for many years with very fine quality programming and lots of investment in building facilities and equipment. And the cost and the deficit of operating such a center was not tenable. So the county office and the county board did close that regional occupation center, which was housed on Rollins Road in that building there. And we do not believe that the regional occupation model at this time is the way in which to invest our resources. So we responded that way to that finding. We believe that the partnerships, deepening the business community, involvement of the business community, building out plans, helping develop more pathways for teachers to develop CTE credentials. All of those things are really smart and effective, economical ways to approach this work. And I think both Associate Superintendent Schaus, Executive Director Brown, and myself reviewed all the work that we're doing currently or planning to do with our career and technical ed districts and in these buckets of work. And a lot of this, it was pretty easy to plug in because we should have a full-blown plan by the end of this school year, which is the first recommendation. And we did say that we're on the way to that, and we do have a timeline for implementing that. So the other LEAs that were the target or focus of this report were the 6 LEAs that have high school programs. So the 3 unified districts and the 3 union high school districts were also had 1 or 2 findings or recommendations. The bulk of the recommendations were pointed at the County Office of Education. And it's my assessment that our response really embraces most of the recommendations and enthusiastically shares in detailed ways how we're going to move forward in this area. So I'm happy to take any questions, and Executive Director Brown is still here to help me with the technical parts.
Are there any questions? Nope. It doesn't look like there's any questions.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Item 7B, Superintendent's comments. Superintendent McGee, do you have any comments this evening?
I have a few brief comments, and then I know it's been a few weeks since you've received any email update from me, and I'll talk about the way in which we've been launching the new school year, launching the strategic plan. It's been a pretty big lift the last few weeks, so I actually will be sending a more detailed update to you first thing in the morning. It's drafted with some sort of statewide initiatives and things to have on your radar. As far as the local update, I want to welcome back Mr. Lempert, and I hope your sabbatical was restorative, fun, inspiring. I haven't heard anything about it, but hope it was all those things. And we've had a great start to the new school year. We spent 2 very impactful days together in executive leadership retreat. There were 22 of us for 2 days out in Half Moon Bay. And I personally have never enjoyed or felt more connected to a group of leaders in my tenure here at the County Office of Ed. So I'm really excited about the group going forward and how the strategic plan is really helping us focus in on our responsibilities to help impact and improve and transform educational experiences for our students. I believe I was also very happy with the fun and inspiring launch event at the CSM. I think that was 2 weeks ago. I've a little bit lost track of where I am in the month. I said today to someone that it feels like October, but it's really only the middle of August. Anyway, we had a great launch event, so many wonderful voices and positive stories from across the organization where it was very, very clear how so many people are contributing to our vision of equity and excellence in education. Really so grateful and appreciative that Board President Gerard and board members Benini, Cannon, and Torres were present to celebrate and experience that with us. That was really important, and very appreciative of you spending your afternoon there with us. I want to do a special thank you to the communications team, Patricia Love, Anton, and Sarah Hopkins, not only for supporting the launch event itself, but just the whole strategic planning process. I think there were materials at your seat tonight where we tried to produce a strategic plan that was accessible to most people. I think it's about 17 pages long and not 117 pages. We have a very nice foldable and a postcard. We've developed implementation tools already based on the 4 buckets. We have a very strong equity statement to begin with. We'll certainly evolve that over time, but everyone in the organization right now is working on really becoming a lot more familiar with the strategic plan and then tying their yearly goals through both the 4 buckets of the strategic plan, as well as the 4 commitments of the equity statement. So it will be an active guidance for us for the next 5 years. Also really thrilled that our school teams were able to complete a really thorough and high level of integrity strategic plan for their school programs. And that is integrated into the plan as goal 1, which is part of the whole child outcomes. We have goal 1A, which is sort of district facing, and then goal 1B, which is school program facing. So we've also had a smooth start out at our school sites. Hats off to all of the school leaders under Associate Superintendent Schaus for smooth beginnings. And in my communications with superintendents, the tone feels lighter out there. There's more energy that's really directly focused right away on teaching, learning, and supporting student activities for the positive school year ahead. The hardships and heaviness of the last few years seems to be lifted somewhat, which is really encouraging. And just hats off to our SMCOE school site leaders, our teachers, and our staff for their hard work to kick off a great school year for students. Very briefly, last Friday, former Congresswoman Jackie Spear convened the community of leaders for her event called San Mateo Rising, Ending Child Poverty. It was wonderful to see board members Camacho, Cannon, and Lempert attending that. And it was an impactful day of learning. I learned a lot. There were important conversations going on, all focused on action-oriented next steps and all focused on children, which was really, really wonderful. And then today, tomorrow, and Friday, the statewide curriculum development work group for the climate change and environmental justice program that we're in partnership with 10 Strands on are convening here at the county office, people coming from all over the state to collaborate and advance the project. Joining today was State Board member Sharon Olkin, who actually lives in San Francisco, so it was an easy drive for her down to the county office. She is the state board's liaison to the project, and it was really wonderful to meet her and to hear her vision for the work. So that is very exciting going on here in our office. And lastly, everything's all set for the September 20th Good Beginnings Board Workshop. All the paperwork's completed, we've got the materials, everybody's got on the calendar, and looking forward to that. And that completes my comments for tonight.
Thank you very much. Item 8A, we're in board members now, and the board will discuss and act on the designation of the San Mateo County Board of Education's voting representative at the California County Boards of Education meeting September 9th, 2023 in Monterey, California. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Thank you. We need to have a nomination for someone to act as our representative to vote for our county board. And normally, I usually take on that responsibility. But this year I will not be able to do that. So I believe, in addition to myself, Mr. Camacho and Ms. Benini will also be attending the conference. Is that all we have going this year? I'm not sure.
Sorry. That's all we have so far on our list. Is that correct?
So far.
Okay, thank you. So would one of you like to take on the responsibility? I'll let you two talk about it.
Oh, I'd love to nominate Trustee Bonini to be our voting member.
All right, Ms. Benini has been nominated to be our voter designee. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Oh.
Okay. There is a motion to designate Chelsea Benini made by Mr. Camacho and a second by Ms. Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Bonini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and Chelsea Benini will serve as CCBE voting representative for the San Mateo County Board of Education for the September 9th, 2023 meeting in Monterey, California. Congratulations. Item 8B, the board will discuss and act on the appointment of an ad hoc gateway subcommittee. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Hearing none, as board president, I would actually like to appoint Chelsea Benini, Susan Alvaro, and myself to the ad hoc gateway subcommittee. Is there discussion? Is there a motion to approve the appointment of an ad hoc gateway subcommittee comprised of Beverly Gerard, Chelsea Benini, and Susan Alvaro?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion made by Mr. Torres and a second by Mr. Camacho. Is there any further discussion?
And I just had a question because we've just had general discussions about the roles of subcommittees and stuff. So could you just say a little bit more about this one? So like, I know like, you know, in some cases they've had very specific charges or something the full board can't do. And I know we've had some like on property where there's a lot of research that had to be done. So like there was this need for a subcommittee. So I guess I'd just like to understand like what the charge is of this.
Ms. Benini?
You want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I requested the subcommittee months ago because there was an ongoing process. And the reason that I believe the subcommittee is needed is because there are a lot of stakeholders that as of yet have not been fully engaged with. And that includes board trustees that we have relationships with our own areas and in other areas. So also the resolution under which we rescinded the closing date in July laid out the priorities that had been expressed by the board generally. And so those are stated in the resolution, but including, generally the board as I would say, well, this was approved as a majority or as a unanimous of everyone present. And you weren't there, Mr. Lumpert. But number one was to continue to serve students at Gateway as a school of the board. My understanding is that from discussions with Superintendent McGee and with others, that may or may not be in the current form of a community school, or it may be, and maybe there are other options. So that's that. And then the second one is to include all the high school districts and unified districts in any continuing process and discussions. And so as we are representatives for our areas, it's anticipated that we would have discussions with people in different districts around what their needs are. I know there's a design process going on as well, but it is incumbent upon our board in making sure that we know what happens with our school, that we engage. So that's the intent. And then the third one was for the board to be included in the continuing process and discussion. So we also anticipate we'll hear updates from the current design process, and then that we'll have some engagement on our own as well. That's how I perceive it.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, my questions are specific, but actually more general, just, when there needs to be a subcommittee and when there doesn't. And so I guess, because folks should always have meetings and meet with school folks, and we would, as a full board, get updates. So I'm literally just trying to say, this goes back years. We're like, why do we have a subcommittee and why
Right.
don't we? So like the subcommittee that I'm thinking of, like on, on a property issue we had, the subcommittee was very clear in saying, we can't speak for the board or a subcommittee, so we're going to do research. That's all we're going to do. And then, came back. So because it's a subcommittee, it can't speak for the board. So my question for this committee, and it's always for the committee, is why do you need a subcommittee? Why couldn't the full board do it? And then, like, does the subcommittee bring stuff back to the full board? So it's just a process question that I've asked every time we
Right.
have a subcommittee like this.
Can I respond? So I did some research going back at least to 2018
Yep.
as to when subcommittees have been formed. So they're obviously for different events, but sometimes for programmatic
absolutely.
things, right?
Yep.
So for instance, March 14th, 2018, Mr. Ross requested an ad hoc subcommittee for computer science.
Yep.
The statement of the subcommittee was literally one sentence or two, and it was requested. And it was brought forward to determine if the board wishes to create the committee and to determine membership. So that was the cover letter,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know what that subcommittee did, and if it was further described, but again, like
Yep.
usually it's not really outlined as much.
Yep.
And I guess it was formed and maybe determined that it was needed. I actually don't know. I didn't read the minutes. But anyway, I don't know the answer entirely.
I think as well. We've discussed this with Superintendent McGee, and I think there will be times when she would like board representation to meet with her and other entities that are involved in this process. And because of the Brown Act, all board members can't necessarily always be there. So this way, whether it's all three of us or one of us, someone can also be a representative and a partner in the planning. I mean, this is the first time we've ever really restructured the entire community school program. And so it's a new process. And we felt like that an ad hoc committee was a good plan for going forward and being partners in the planning of the new school, whatever it'll be. Superintendent McGee?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
The other thing I would add for the board, of course, whatever the subcommittee is doing will come back to the board as report. But my view of it, and the reason I requested it was to gather information,
Yeah.
not to share information, not to say the board thinks
Yeah.
this, the board thinks that, because obviously we know we can't do that. But to hear it ourselves, to be in the conversation, which we really haven't been. to date.
Superintendent McGee?
Yeah, I can just add a little bit of additional context that what we've been doing is working with the superintendents to agree or commit to what we wanted to accomplish that we haven't yet started any design process. But it was important to make sure that the superintendent partners that I'm working with on this are fully committed, and we all are aspiring to accomplish the same thing for the same reasons. So that was the purpose of the Gateway Learning Series, which was a very internal conversation. At this point, we did decide that we wanted to engage in a design process, and it will be taking place this year. And it will be very formal, and it will be very extensive, and we will be working with the National Equity Project as our supporting agency. That is not yet fleshed out, but we have agreed to use them to work forward. And so it will be very planned, organized, transparent, lots of stakeholder engagement, and absolutely a place for the board members to participate in that process.
Ms. Benini?
Can you share more about the National Equity Project and also the cost of that process? Because I'm just curious as to.
We don't have a proposal. They're working on that right now, so I don't have a cost. It's whatever that cost is, I believe it's important to invest, because not only is this going to be a redesign for our own school, but we're going to use it as a launching pad for a plan for alternative education in the county. So we want to shape and inform and guide best practices in every school district in San Mateo County around alternative education. So it has multiple layers. The process will have multiple layers. The National Equity Project is a national organization, but they're headquartered, I believe, in Oakland. They've done a lot of really important projects. We met with 3 different teams. They were actually very excited about the idea. We met with 3 different teams to understand the best way to accomplish our goals. And so we determined that just a customized consulting partnership would be the best.
Ms. Benini?
Do you know if they have been, if they've assisted any other county offices with similar projects?
Yes, they have.
Can you tell us who?
I don't know which, but they told me they had just finished working with they did mention that they had worked with a couple of county offices, but they definitely work with districts and county offices. And they've been around for quite a while. Some others in the audience might know more about them. I don't know. Anybody? No. Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say one more thing.
I will share more about all of that.
That's
It's-
enough.
It's very, we don't have a formal proposal from them yet. They're working on it. So that's why I haven't said anything.
I was just going to close the loop on my thing. I appreciate it. I got my answer. I've been on several of these subcommittees where it really helped to have a subcommittee getting the information, meaning the reason that I ask, and I'm trying to remember the case. It was like 3 or 4 years ago where someone proposed a subcommittee. It wasn't the computer science one. And my question was why can't the full board just do this? So it's just a question I routinely ask. In this case, it makes sense, but that's why I'm asking. Because there might be times where someone proposes a subcommittee and we might say, well, wait a second, why don't we just do this all at the full board level? But given the situation and the need for more intensive meetings, I get it. So I just wanted to close the loop.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? May I please have a roll call vote?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and the board has approved the appointment of an ad hoc gateway subcommittee. Item 8C, the board will discuss and act on joint resolution number 23 through 26-26, resolution to partner with the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust Heart of San Mateo County to create workforce housing. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee?
Thank you. The board has before them a joint resolution addressing the various aspects of the partnership with Heart and the sort of the timeline in which things would happen. As the resolution states, and as we've heard in the past, we also have Executive Director Armando Sanchez here tonight, so he's happy to speak to any questions the board may have. But Heart is a JPA and has the authority to issue particular bonds. They have financing partners, and they approached us with this project to purchase an existing apartment building somewhere in San Mateo County. The partnership of SMCOE would be that we would help support them in communicating the project to the education workforce, and then also making determinations about how the savings each year would be applied to rent reductions. And then, so the first part of the resolution talks about approving, the county superintendent will be signing an MOU that gives Heart the go ahead and begin looking for the building. I spoke with Executive Director Sanchez today, and we both well understand that this will likely not be a swift process, that it could take months, it could take a year. It just depends on financing, what becomes available, and what would be acceptable to the parties, which would be the Heart Board and SMCOE, which is the county superintendent and the county board. The second part of the resolution is about once a building is located and has gotten the green light from the stakeholders to move forward on, the county superintendent would sign the public benefit agreement, which is something you're agreeing to in approving the resolution. The public benefit agreement must be executed before the purchase of the building. And the public benefit agreement is the agreement that at the end of the, basically the bond payment within 30 years or so, the county SMCOE would accept the building or determine the manner of ownership of that building. So that would be the decision of a future superintendent and future board to make, but without the public benefit agreement, we couldn't enter into the purchase of the building in the first place. Do I have that right, Armando? And so tonight, with approval of the resolution, then Heart will work with their partners to scope out their buying strategy and begin looking. And then Heart and SMCOE would begin working on a joint communication plan to communicate the project to our partners, both in the city councils and in the school board seats.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Ms. Alvaro?
Thank you. I just have a specific question. I'm trying to understand the wording here. In the very first page, well, it's not the first page, but it's in the cover letter. Under housing benefits, it says the PBA is an option agreement. The board and superintendent has the option, and we'd have to have the board and superintendent agree to sign the grant deed and take co-ownership, which is, as I understood it. When I read the actual, I'm sorry,
Resolution.
yeah, the actual resolution, thank you. I'm trying to read three things at once here. The actual resolution, when I get down to the now therefore part, item 3 says that when a project's been identified, the county superintendent with the board subcommittee general approval will work. So
That's about the actual building that is selected,
yeah,
not the public benefit agreement.
okay. So that's the actual building, and that is my specific question. So the subcommittee and the superintendent have the authority to go ahead and say, yep, we like that building. At what point does the whole board have input and to say, that's a good location for it, or we have some concerns, or, and
We
maybe
d-
this, yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
we had discussed this at a prior meeting, that one of the important aspects of a successful purchase of a building will be expediency.
Hmm.
And there would not be, we agreed that the subcommittee would give general approval. I can share out the the subcommittee's general approval with the full board in a memo, and people would have time to respond back, but there wouldn't be a formal action at a board meeting, because that could slow the process down.
It could slow it way down, and I thoroughly understand that. So the idea that what you just said about that would go to a memo to the whole board, and if there was some red flag, we would have the opportunity to say, whoa, I have a real concern about that.
Yeah, we could slow to answer questions or explore a situation, but we wouldn't want to have to wait 10 days or,
Yeah. or
and even
more.
to get something into a board packet. Even to assemble the board in a special meeting can sometimes be a challenging
Absolutely.
activity. So
Absolutely. So yeah, I think I would be really happy with that if the subcommittee was in agreement with you or with the superintendent, and then there was a memo sent to the board for, like you've got 24 hours or 48 hours to react. I would think that would be appropriate. So thank you.
I think that's generally what we talked about. That's
Yeah.
my understanding of how it would work.
Yeah, I thought so too, but then I got confused while I was reading this. So thank you for clarifying that.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Is there a motion to approve joint resolution number 23-26? Is there a motion?
Yeah, that's so moved.
Oh. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion made by Mr. Limpert and a second by Mr. Torres. Is there any further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with a unanimous vote, and joint resolution number 23-26 has been approved. Thank you so much for coming this evening. We appreciate it. Thank you. Item 8D, the board will discuss and act on participation by board member Torres in the 2023 International LGBTQ+ Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C., November 30th through December 2nd, 2023. Before we begin, are there any comments from the public? Superintendent McGee.
We had a request of interest from board member Torres about support for this conference. And I simply referenced the board policy and it said that there needed to be board approval if a conference was out of California. So this is maybe board member Torres wants to speak to, I think it's well, I'm not going to say my opinion, but you go ahead and speak to your
Thank you.
desires.
Yes, so this was actually sent to me from other local leaders. And then I read into it and thought it would be a great opportunity just to learn how we can further support all students and what's being done, across all states. But it was also brought to my attention, there's another conference, I believe, during that same time. I haven't had the time to decide which one I would be going to, but if I could have the option, even if I don't end up going, that would be great. I will be focusing on that today, deciding now which conference to go to.
Are you referencing CSBA?
Yes.
Okay, so that one wouldn't need any approval.
Right.
No.
So if you get this, then you're free to choose, right?
Yeah.
Between the two.
Okay, so then what if we approve this, then you'll decide which conference you want to go to. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Alvaro?
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we cross our Ts here. In our board policy, it says that this has to be related to duties as board members, and that this board member that we approve shall come back and report to the county board as soon as possible on these activities. So if you could say in just one sentence, so that we could say, we cross that T, how this relates to your duties as a board member, and that you will come back and report to us when you get done.
Yes, of course. So it's for elected and appointed officials who identify as part of the community and want to collaborate and network with each other. That's one. And then two, identify pressing issues across the states and what we can do within our policies to further support students who also identify as part of that community.
And you will come back and report to the board when you get back.
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions? Mr. Camacho?
Just looking at the sponsoring organization, there's no political affiliation with any of it, correct? It doesn't have anything to do with elections.
Oh, no.
I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah, no, otherwise I would not be going.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to approve Board Member Torres' participation in the 2023 International LGBTQ+ Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C.?
Move approval.
Second.
There is a motion made by Ms. Alvaro and a second by Mr. Lempert. Is there any other further discussion? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Alvaro,
Aye.
Ms. Benini,
Aye.
Mr. Camacho,
Aye.
Mr. Lumpert,
Aye.
Mr. Torres,
Aye.
Ms. Gerard.
Aye. The motion passes with unanimous vote, and Board Member Torres has been approved to attend the 2023 International LGBTQ+ Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C. Item 8E, the board will discuss topics for future board agendas. Would any board members like to discuss agenda ideas? Ms. Benini.
So I have a couple things. A couple of them are things we've talked about before, but I have a couple of new things. So I just want to go through them. So the first one actually relates to Board Member Torres's request. Our board received a letter from a group in the county asking for some information about how we support students, LGBTQ+ LGBTQ plus students in our county. We received this letter on or about March 18th. And there was a letter attached to the follow-up, I guess it had been sent before, that asked us to respond and we're doing a number of things, I believe, in our county office. And so my request is that, I guess, I don't know if it's an agenda item, but that we might respond to the letter so that we can share that information. So maybe that needs to be agendized. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's put it on my list under
Yes,
agenda items.
probably so, yes.
Okay,
What was the date of the letter?
March 18th, 2023. And I can forward.
And I assume that came to me as well.
Let me see if I
I-
can tell.
I think it was a follow-up message from a previous one, and the
Came
first one
earlier.
I'd said, I looped you in and I said the superintendent might be able to respond, but that was earlier.
I think it initially came maybe in January, February.
Yeah.
In January?
I think so.
Okay.
Could I get that too? I think that was before I was appointed.
Definitely. And so I had it in my file. So I mean, I thought that I wasn't sure if we'd responded, and I apologize for not responding. and
Maybe I can just see a copy of the letter so that I can find it.
Perfect.
And then we
Yeah.
can work on it in response and
Okay.
bring it perhaps to consent agenda. You can approve it and then we can send it out.
Okay, perfect. So that sounds great. My second request is that I know already on our board agenda items, we have a number of school visits that we might do in the future. And we've, done some. My request is that rather than this just be on future agenda items, that as we work through our calendar for the coming year, that we build in a rolling visits to the different sites as the school year begins, and then visit the sites and do that on an ongoing basis. So it's not really a different request, but it is just to do that, and sites we've already seen last year, like ODA and other things. So like all the schools since it's the start of the school year. So that's my second one. Thirdly, I would request that the board consider having a resolution in October for Dyslexia Awareness Month. I don't know if we've had one in the past. I have a sample that I received from the Decoding Dyslexia California organization or group. And so I'd be willing to assist with that. So that's my third request if the board's willing. And then lastly, when we get to another few months in toward November, December, the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission will have completed their inspections of the different facilities that house some of our school programs. And my request is that we ask the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission commissioners to present this to us in a board meeting in summary form, I would assume, because they're very long, but that we receive them and have a chance to review them so that we can follow up on Melissa Wilson, who's a commissioner who came to speak to us a couple of months ago or a month ago, asking that we sort of participate and help them in this feedback loop so that they can make sure that they are responding and then following up. And so that's my last request.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any other items that they would like to add to a future agenda? Okay, thank you very much. Item 8F is board members will comment, and I'll start with Mr. Torres.
Yes, I gave everyone a copy of a community assessment done by ALAS, and they partnered with other community-based organizations in San Mateo County. Ms. Alvaro, I'll get a PDF version and get that to you, I promise. And just
They
if you
actually
have
sent
them
it to me. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Yes, they had a beautiful event held in Half Moon Bay, all in Spanish. They had interpreters, great food, great people, and it was just great to see everyone come together and coming up with solutions to tackle these issues. And I think the launch was before our last meeting. I can't remember, but it does feel like a long time ago. It was great to see everyone in those different departments give their presentations. It was amazing to see. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Limpert.
The sabbatical was great. We'll share more. That's nice to be back. And it's really exciting to welcome our new leaders here today. And then it was great being at the Poverty Summit that the superintendent mentioned. I would just add that the superintendent and the county office were highlighted in numerous remarks about our role, both in really trying to eliminate poverty and also gun violence. So it was really great to hear the kudos from Jackie and lots of other leaders.
Thank you. Ms. Alvaro.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for letting me attend remotely. I didn't want to miss tonight's meeting. I wanted to welcome and give my congratulations to the people who were introduced tonight, of course, the Employee of the Month, but also to the people who are just coming on board and those who have been with us for quite some time and who've been promoted into new positions. The thing I kept hearing over and over again is the level of expertise combined with the level of enthusiasm for the work. It's just really wonderful to hear, and that's how we get the work done. People get excited. And Mr. Perlow, I believe you're still sitting. Yes, I can see you. There you are. So, you know, it takes a special kind of data geek to be able to take raw data and make it make sense and be usable to people who need it, who are not data geeks. And some of us, like Mr. Camacho and I, think data geeks a compliment because that's the way we think too. And so it's just wonderful to see the way you can dive into all of this disparate information and pull it together and make it make sense. It's like, why is this as important as this, and how do they balance each other, and how does one inform the other one? So I just wanted to compliment you and thank you for the way you look at things and the way you're able to translate that to people who don't necessarily think that way. I think it's really important, and thank you for the work. And I'm really looking forward to some of the reports that you're coming up with soon. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Camacho.
I don't think I have anything extra to add because the summit was great. The presentation this evening was great, and the staff. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Benini.
I wanted to take this time to thank Superintendent McGee for giving me the opportunity to speak with Director Schaus and Mary McGrath to give me some additional insight into the CSBA panel that I'll be on for mental health. So that was really, really helpful. That partner or paired with thank you for allowing the Behavioral Health Commission for the county to be in this space to do the launch of our mental health caregiver pathways. And it went really well. And also thank you to Superintendent McGee for attending. And we really look forward to engaging more on that. But I just wanted to say those first. And then it was really great to attend the strategic launch for the strategic plan, the launch for the plan. And I just wanted to kind of put it out there, well, having been on the strategic plan subcommittee and hearing a lot of discussion, and I really enjoyed being able to participate in some of the conversations and the sessions. And I think I was in the group that was being led by Director Bultema. But as we were doing that, the subcommittees and our work there was a lot of discussion on how which parts kind of involved the board, even though we weren't really creating, like we participated, but it's like the office's strategic plan for the most part. But I look forward to hearing more about how we can engage in that. One idea or one question I had was, I know when the strategic plan was rolled out in the last iteration, the board members actually shared it with their constituent districts, right? Went to visit. So some of us, like there's 3 of us that represent one district. So maybe we go together, I'm not sure. But anyway, that how we would engage together for advocacy. That was part of the discussion that I had in that group, which was, I think, partnerships and advocacy with Kevin Baltimore. So that's my question around that. And gosh, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I also would like to thank you, Mr. Prolo, for your report. I am not necessarily always an analytical thinker. However, I love to look at analytical things and results just exactly like you gave us tonight. And I've been criticized more than one time for leading with my heart, not necessarily with my analytics. So anyway, I really appreciate it. And it is information we need to know and can use and certainly process. So thank you again so much. Again, I want to welcome all of our new members that were introduced this evening. It is so exciting to see such wonderful people becoming members of the San Mateo County Office of Education. I also attended the strategic planning launch and was also on that committee. So I was participating in that as well. And it was lovely to see it all come to fruition because sometimes you wonder when you're attending those meetings and all the people are making all these comments and you're changing things over and over again, if it'll ever come together. And it did. It was very successful. Everybody was very enthusiastic. And it was really nice to spend some time chatting after the launch with the people that were there and getting some feedback from them. I also attended board member Benini's meeting that she had here, and that was very informative. I was very interested in the group that I was participating with. We were invited in with groups, and how what they had to say directly related to our court and community schools and our special education. So I really appreciated being invited and being able to participate. I also have been had a very active week last week with California County School Boards Association with meetings for the final planning of our CCBE conference coming up in 2 weeks. Also our governance planning and our governance training workshop, which will be in March. So it's been a busy last few weeks, and I'm looking forward to all the new things on the horizon. And with that, the next regular meeting will take place on Wednesday, September 6th, 2023 at 7 p.m. And this meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. That's so funny.